So today we'll be looking at the straight line equation, y is equals to mx plus c. Y is equals to mx plus c, as you can clearly see. What is the y? Y is the dependent variable. Y is the dependent variable. Why do we call it a dependent variable? We call it a dependent variable simply because whatever value you put on the right hand side, either the slope or the independent variable, which is x, and then the constant c, will determine what y becomes. So we have y as the dependent variable, like we just mentioned now, and then m is the slope, or we can call it gradient. What do we mean by gradient? Simply change in y over change in x. Change in y over change in x. And then x is the independent variable. Is the independent variable. So what we do is to substitute for a value of x, multiply it by m, and then add the constant to give us y. So it's an independent variable. Then the value of c is a constant, but c precisely is the y-axis intercept. C is the y-axis intercept. So when we talk about the y-axis intercept, which is c, it is actually, the y-axis intercept. So how do we, if you have a graph like this, so this is the y-axis here, and this is the x-axis. This is the x-axis. If I draw a straight line here, where is the y-axis intercept? This point here. This point here is the y-axis intercept for this line. Y-axis intercept. That point here. If I have another graph and I draw a straight line arbitrarily, knowing fully well that this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. What is my y-axis intercept? This is where the line crosses the y-axis. So this point here is my y-axis intercept. So that's what the value of c is the y-axis intercept. And if you notice, for this first plot, at the point where you have your y-axis intercept, what's the value of x? Your x value is 0. Your x value is 0. And also, if you look at the second one, at the point at where your y crosses your line crosses the y-axis intercept, you notice that your x value is 0. So at the y-axis intercepts, that is c, x is equals to 0. And the y-axis intercept x is equals to 0. When x is 0, y is equals to, that's c. When x is 0, y is equals to c, where c is the y-axis intercept. That should be very clear now. So what we'll do today is so we are very, very clear with this equation, y is equals to mx plus c. It should be very clear right now what this equation is. What we'll just do now is to use some examples to understand it more. So let me just look at this question. So the question is, the question so we have three equations. So the first question is number one, are these straight line equations? Are these straight line equations? Straight line equations. So if they are, determine determine the slopes, and then also determine the y-intercept, the y-intercept. And then the third question is plot the graphs of the straight line equations. So if we look at this, what do we have? So the question is, are these straight line equations? It's the question. Then determine the slopes, determine the y-intercepts, and then 3, plot the graphs of the straight line equations. So what are the questions? So which ones are the, let me show you the equations we are talking about. So the first one is, let me just put it on the next page. So the first one is y is equal to 2x to x minus 1. The second one is y is equals to 4. And the third one is, this is 1, 2, 3. The third one is equals to y is equals to 5x plus 5. So the first thing we're supposed to determine, let's start with let's look at the solutions. So I'll start with the first question. Y is equals to 2x minus 1. So the first thing I will do is I will compare it with the general equation of the straight line where y is equals to mx plus c. So does this look alike? You can see that this and this look alike because the coefficient of y is equals to 1. What do I mean by coefficient of y? What is multiplying the y? 1. So they look alike on the left-hand side. Let's go to the right-hand side. Mx. Is there something multiplying the x? There is something multiplying the x. There's something multiplying the x, or let me say the number here multiplying the x is 2. So positive 2. So that tells you that whatever multiplies x is the coefficient of x, and in this case, the coefficient of x is m, and m is the gradient. So in this particular question, we are saying that m is 2, and we have a c. C is the constant, and that constant c is also the y-intercept. So we are saying that c is equal to minus 1. So we can see clearly. So number one, answering the question, is it a straight line equation? Yes, it is a straight line equation. How do we know? Because it follows the format of a straight line equation, which says that y is equal to mx plus c. Does it have all the parameters? It does. Do we have the gradients? We have the gradient m is equals to 2. Do we have the y-intercept? We have the y-intercept. C is equals to minus 1. C is equals to minus 1. That's from here. So we have solved for m, which is the gradient. This is the gradient or slope. Gradient. And then this is the y-axis intercept. So the next thing we'll do now is to plot this equation. We're going to plot it. We're going to plot it. We'll be plotting it. And what are we plotting? Y is equals to 2x minus 1. Y is equals to 2x minus 1. So the simple way to plot a straight line equation is to try and get 2 points. Already we know what the y-axis intercept is. So let's draw this graph. So let's say two boxes represent 1. Let's say here is 1. This is 2, 3. So let's say this is 1, 2. And then going on the negative side, we say this is minus 1. And here we say minus 2. So this is your x-axis. This is your y-axis. So the first thing we will try to do when you want to plot is, what is the value of x? What is the value of y, sorry, when x is equals to 0? So from this equation, we are saying that y is equals to 2x minus 1. So when your x is 0, so what do you have? You have 0 minus 1, which is equals to 1 minus 1. We already know that from the equation that this value here is your y intercept, and that occurs when x is 0. So the coordinates of that point will be x will be 0, and then your y will be what? Minus 1. And this value is the value of the c in the equation, which is your y-axis intercept. So let's just go to this plot now. At what point does the y-axis is minus 1? It's here. That is where the y-axis crosses. That is where the line crosses on the y-axis. That is the y-intercept. So I've put a dot here. Let me see whether I can change the color. Let me make it. Let me make it blue. So we have found one point. So the first point, what did we do? We looked for where x is 0 and then the corresponding value of y, which we have as minus 1. So the next thing we will do is to look for where y is 0. What is the corresponding value of x? So from this equation, we are saying y is equals to 2x minus 1. So when y is 0, y is equals to 0, what's the value of x? So let's solve this equation. So if you take this, the minus 1 to the left-hand side, you have 1 is equals to 2x. If you solve for x, you have x will be half. So the second coordinate now we have is, we have when y is 0, we have the value of x, which is half. So when x is half, y is 0. So where is x half? X is half. So on the x-axis, you have 1, 2, 3. So half will be in between 0 and 1. So half will be somewhere here. So that is the coordinates. That's the coordinate here. Whereas this one is the coordinate here. So we have 2 points. So we can join the points. So if we join these 2 points, the equation of the straight line will look like this. So that is the straight line. We have plotted it. So let me just make it look clearer. So what we simply have is an equation that looks like this. It crosses this point. It crosses this point at 0 minus 1. At 0 minus 1. And then it crosses this point here at half and 0. Half, comma, 0. So what does this mean? So when x is half, y is 0 is half. 1, 2. So this is how the straight line equation looks, rough sketch. So we look at the next question. The next question says, that's question number 2, y is equals to 4. So we want to know whether this is a straight line equation. So we'll compare it with y is equals to mx plus c. So is there a constant multiplying an x? There is no constant multiplying an x. So we know that our m here will be 0. Is there a constant alone, which is going to be the y-axis intercept, which is c? There is a constant alone. So y is equal to 4. So our c in this particular case is equals to 4. So is it a straight line equation? Yes, it is a straight line equation, but it is an equation where the gradient is 0 and then the y-intercept is 4. So we will plot this one. We will plot it. So y is equals to 4. Y is equals to 4. So if you have an equation, if you have a graph, let's say you have here 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Remember that we said that m is 0, m is 0, c is 4. What is c? C means is the y-axis intercept when x is 0. So this is where y is 4. So this is how this equation will look. This graph will look. Going to be a straight line, going to be parallel to the x-axis. So this line here is the equation y is equals to 4. You see that there's no gradient. There is no increase in y over the increase in x. As you are going towards the right, x is increasing, but there is no vertical increase in y. Y is constant and is given by a number y is equals to 4. So let's move to the next question, which is y is equals to y is equals to 5x plus 5. So 5x plus 5. So first and foremost, we'll compare it with y is equals to mx plus c. So if you look at y here, it's multiplied by 1. The coefficient is 1. This one too, the coefficient is 1. What is the coefficient of a number? Whatever is multiplying the variable is the coefficient of the number. So in this case, we have 1 as the coefficient. And that's how the standard equation is y is equals to mx plus c. Now, is there an m multiplying the x? And that m being the gradient? Yes, there is a 5 multiplying x. So m, which is slope or gradient, is 5. Now let's look at the constant c. Is there a constant here? Yes, there is a constant, and that constant is plus 5. So c is equals to plus 5, which of course is 5. So in this case, the gradient is 5, and also the y-axis intercept, which is c, is 5. So we'll just plot So to answer the first question, is it a straight line equation? Yes, it is. Does it have a slope? Yes, it does. And the slope or gradient is 5. What is the y-axis intercept? The y-axis intercept is c, which is equals to 5. Now we will be plotting this equation y is equals to 5x plus 5. So one of the first things we said when we want to plot an equation is get the value of y when x is 0. So when x is 0, what is the value of y? 5, 0 plus 5. So y is 5 when x is 0. We already know that before, because when x is 0, we have the y-axis intercept. Y is 5. So we already actually knew that one before, but just to fulfill all righteousness. So we have x is 0, y 5. Then we also do when y is 0. When y is 0, what is the value of x? So from the equation, y is equals to 5x plus 5. When y is 0, we have 5x plus 5. If we take the 5 to the other side, we have minus 5 is equals to 5x. So it tells us that x what we have is that x is equals to minus 1. Minus 1. So what we have is we have the coordinates. We have the coordinates x is equals to minus 1 when y is equals to 0. So that's simply what we'll just plot. X is equals to 0 and y is 5. So x is equals to 0, y is 5. And then what are the other coordinates we have? X is equals to minus 1. X is equals to minus 1 when y is 0. So these are the 2 points. So when x is 0, y is 5. So let's take this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when x is 0, y is 5. So this is the point here. So x is 0 here. So that's the point where x is 0 and y is 5. And of course, we knew that before because the y-axis intercept is that constant. You know, we had y is equals to 5x plus 5. Already, even without, we know that this value here is the y-axis intercept. So if we want to be fast, all we need to do is to just mark that place as the first point, and then just go and solve for where y is 0. Solve for where we now get the corresponding value of x, which is minus 1. So where y is 0, x is minus 1. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we also go the negative way. We have minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. So what we're saying here is that where y is 0, x is minus 1 at this point. So when you have 2 points, you can simply join them. So this equation as the equation of the straight line. So we have sketched the equation of the straight line for the 3 questions. The first question being y is equal to 2x minus 1. The second one being y is equal to 4. And the third one being y is equal to 5x plus 5. I want to believe that this has been clear.